Welcome. Grab your coffee, settle in, and let this story touch your heart. You ever have that one friend you trust with everything? For us, that was Zara. She wasn't just our best friend. She felt like a sister. We laughed together, cried together, survived the worst parts of life together. But the whole time, she was hiding something so big, so dark. We couldn't see it until it was too late. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't just break our trust, it shattered our entire world. This isn't just a story about lies. It's about how betrayal from the person you love most can leave scars that never heal. I used to think I knew what loyalty meant. That word had a name, a face, Emily. She'd been my best friend since we were 9. We shared secrets, dreams, first heartbreaks. She was the one I called at 2 a.m. when I couldn't breathe after my dad left. The one who stood beside me when I lost my job, when I thought I'd lost myself. So when things started to change, subtle at first, I dismissed them. But looking back, the signs were there. The late-night whispers I wasn't supposed to hear. The glint in her eyes that wasn't there before. The lies she told so easily. And the truth I never wanted to know. It didn't begin with a bang. It began with a phone left on the kitchen counter. It was a Wednesday evening. Rain tapped against the window panes like a soft, persistent knock. Emily had come over after work, claiming she just needed to decompress. She was jittery, distracted. Her coffee grew cold in her hands. When she finally excused herself to the bathroom, she left her phone beside her purse. Unlocked. It lit up once, then twice. I shouldn't have looked. But the name Zara Black appeared on the screen, flashing in bold letters. I knew all of Emily's friends. Zara wasn't one of them. My gut twisted in that awful way it does when you know something's wrong, but you can't explain why. The text read, "Tonight, same place. Don't forget the key." My fingers trembled as I locked her phone and shoved it back, heart pounding like a drum against my ribcage. When Emily returned, I pretended not to notice the change in her posture, the sudden tightness in her smile. She knew. Somehow she knew I'd seen it, but neither of us said anything. That was the first silent fracture in our trust. Days passed. She stopped responding to my messages during the night. Her replies were delayed, clipped, cautious. Emily, the woman who used to send me memes at midnight and cry laugh into the phone for hours, was now a ghost wearing her skin. Then came the night I followed her. She left my place at 10:13 p.m., wearing an oversized hoodie and jeans, casual enough not to draw attention, but too careful not to. I waited a beat before I grabbed my keys and jacket, then followed her at a distance. Her path wasn't random. She walked with purpose, each step more confident than the last. She led me downtown to an abandoned warehouse near the river, the kind of place teenagers dared each other to sneak into. I ducked behind a rusted dumpster and watched her knock 3 times on a steel door. A small slit opened, then the door creaked ajar, revealing nothing but darkness. Emily stepped inside without hesitation. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. My mind raced through 1,000 possibilities: drug deal, cult, underground club. None of them felt right. And then I heard it. Laughter. But not Emily's. It was deeper, coarser, followed by a soft, rhythmic chant. The kind you'd hear in documentaries about secret societies. My body froze, torn between fear and curiosity. And then the door opened again. This time, it wasn't Emily who came out. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a black coat and a mask. A full-face mask, featureless except for 2 narrow slits for eyes. He scanned the alley. I ducked further down, heart in my throat. Then he pulled out a phone. Emily's phone. I stayed hidden until the man vanished into the night, swallowed by the mist curling off the river. When I was sure he was gone, I approached the door, but it was locked tight. Whatever had happened inside that warehouse was sealed away, like a secret the night itself refused to share. I returned home in a haze, questions gnawing at the edges of my sanity. What had Emily gotten involved in? Who was Zara Black? And what did that masked figure want with her phone? But the worst came the next morning when Emily showed up at my doorstep, her eyes red, her lips trembling. She asked if I had been out last night. Her voice was soft, but it carried an undercurrent I couldn't quite place. When I lied and said I stayed in, she nodded slowly. Then she whispered, "Someone followed me. I think they're watching me. Us." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and demand answers. But I couldn't, not yet. The game had just begun, and something told me that if I moved too soon, I wouldn't get the truth. Emily was hiding something, a life I knew nothing about, and that life was beginning to bleed into mine. I couldn't sleep after that night. Every sound outside my apartment felt louder, more deliberate. A car door slamming in the distance made me jolt. Footsteps on the hallway tile made me freeze. Even the wind brushing against the window sounded like whispers trying to get in. Emily's words kept echoing in my mind. "They're watching me. Us." She had never spoken like that before. Not in paranoia, but in quiet acceptance. Like she had known this was coming. That's what disturbed me most. She didn't sound scared. She sounded resigned. I tried to go about my day like normal, but the normal had shifted. Every interaction with Emily now felt like a performance. She smiled, laughed even, but her eyes carried something else. Something deeper. Guilt? Fear? Maybe both. 3 days later, she called me at midnight. I was already awake, watching the ceiling as the shadows danced across it. "Can I come over?" she asked. No small talk, no fake pleasantries, just that flat tone, like she was trying not to let something break inside her. When she arrived, she looked like a storm survivor, soaked from the rain, hair clinging to her face, eyes wide with something between desperation and dread. "I need to tell you something," she said, pacing back and forth in my living room. "But you have to promise me you won't repeat it. Not to anyone. Not even if it scares you." I didn't speak. I just nodded. She sat down and wrung her hands like she was squeezing water from secrets. "You remember when I told you I worked those late shifts at the shelter?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "You said they needed extra volunteers." She looked up. "That was a lie. There is no shelter. I haven't been volunteering." I already knew that, but hearing her say it made the pit in my stomach deepen. "Then where have you been going?" Her eyes flickered toward the window like she was checking for watchers. "There's a group. They call themselves The Fold. I didn't seek them out, they found me 6 months ago. After my panic attacks started getting worse, after the thing with my mom, I was desperate. I'd have done anything to feel safe again." "The Fold," I repeated. She nodded. "They promised answers. Healing. At first it was just meditations, group sessions. But then they started assigning tasks. Small ones like dropping letters, picking up packages. I thought it was weird, but harmless. I thought they were helping people." "What kind of packages?" "I don't know," she said too quickly. "We weren't allowed to look. But last week, I made a mistake. I opened one." She paused then, like the memory itself was poison crawling back up her throat. "It had photographs," she whispered. "Photos of people in their homes, watching TV, cooking, sleeping, hundreds of them. None of the people were aware they were being photographed. I recognized one of them. My breath caught. "Who?" "You." I didn't move, couldn't. The idea of someone watching me without my knowledge, watching me for months, twisted something primal in my chest. "I confronted Zara," she went on. "She's their handler. That's not her real name, just the one she uses inside the Fold. She told me I'd violated protocol, that if I talked, the photos wouldn't be the only thing they had on me." "What does that mean?" I asked, but I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. She didn't reply. Instead, she reached into her soaked hoodie and pulled out a small black USB drive. "They made me record things, people's routines, neighbors, friends. I didn't realize what they were compiling until recently. It's all here. I didn't want to touch it. It felt like evidence, a cursed object carrying far more weight than its size suggested. But I took it. My fingers grazed hers, and I felt how cold her hands were. Not from the rain, this was something deeper, the chill of fear living inside her. "I want out," she said, voice cracking. But no one leaves the fold. Not without consequences. What kind of consequences? People disappear, she whispered. They don't say it, but everyone knows. One girl, Melissa, she asked too many questions. She stopped showing up. We got a message on the app the next day. Melissa is no longer with us. Do not seek her. That's it. Like she never existed. This is insane, Emily. You have to go to the police. They won't help, she said. You think I haven't tried? I called anonymously once. Described what I knew. They told me to stay off the internet if I didn't want conspiracy theories to mess with my head. A week later, Zara made me delete the evidence from my phone. They're listening, watching, everywhere. I opened my mouth, but stopped, because right then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. Emily's eyes widened. Don't answer. I stared at it, the vibration humming through my palm like a warning. But I answered anyway. Silence. Then a soft, female voice. Curiosity is a dangerous thing, isn't it? I didn't recognize the voice, but something about the way she said it, calm, cold, rehearsed, froze my spine. Who is this? You're in possession of something that doesn't belong to you, she continued. Return it, tonight, or the photos won't be the only thing you lose. The line went dead. I looked at Emily. She didn't have to ask what was said. Her face told me she already knew. What do we do? I asked. She exhaled slowly. We expose them. All of it. But we have to be smart. They'll be watching our phones, our laptops. We need an old system. Something they won't think to track. That night, we dug out my father's old film camera and an antique typewriter I kept in storage for sentimental reasons. We printed the files from the USB and took photos of every image, just in case. We wrote names, timelines, locations, all on paper. Felt archaic, but safe. Like trying to outwit a digital god by turning back time. For the first time in weeks, Emily smiled. Not a full smile, but enough to see the girl I once knew. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. A pause. Then 2 more. I didn't move. Neither did Emily. Another knock. Same rhythm. Emily's face drained of color. That's their signal. Are you sure? She nodded. Don't open it. But I was already moving, instincts overriding logic. I peeked through the peephole. No one was there. But on the floor outside, there was an envelope. Plain white. No markings. I opened the door slowly, heart hammering, and picked it up. Inside was a single photo. Emily, asleep on my couch. Dated 2 hours ago. She stood behind me now, trembling. They're not just watching me, she whispered. They're already inside your life. I stared at the photo, the timestamp, the faint silhouette in the window behind her that I hadn't noticed until now. Someone had been inside, or still was. I locked the door, every bolt, every chain. But locks didn't matter anymore. They knew everything. Where we lived, what we feared, who we trusted. And they were just getting started. Emily sat down and buried her face in her hands. I dragged you into this. I'm sorry, but I wasn't angry. I was terrified and determined. We're in this together now, I said. They think they can scare us into silence. Emily looked up, eyes burning. Then let's show them what happens when they underestimate the wrong people. And in that moment, I knew this was no longer about friendship. It was war. The air in my apartment felt heavier after that night. Like the walls themselves had soaked up the fear and were now breathing it back at us. Every corner seemed darker, every shadow more suspicious. Emily barely spoke the next morning. She just stared at the photo again and again, as if trying to decode some invisible threat hiding within the pixels. We slept in shifts. One of us always awake, always watching. I didn't tell her, but I started keeping a knife under the couch cushion, just in case. The next step had to be smart. We couldn't go to the police. We couldn't use our phones. And we had no idea how deep this fold really went. But we had one weapon they didn't expect: paper. And paranoia. Emily had kept a handwritten journal over the past 6 months. She hadn't dared use apps or emails. She scribbled every strange encounter, Every face she saw more than once. Every name she overheard. It was all in code, her own way of remembering without revealing. We spread the journal across my living room table like a war map. She translated while I cross-checked the names with local news clippings, business records, and whatever offline sources I could get my hands on. That's when we found him. Marcus Lane. Emily had seen his face at one of the Fold's healing sessions. She remembered it because he'd had a stitched-up scar across his cheek and a gold chain with a symbol she couldn't forget. A spiral locked inside a square. When I pulled up an old article, printed and filed from a crime newsletter, I felt my stomach twist. Marcus Lane wasn't a therapist or spiritual guide. He was a known recruiter for a covert network shut down 5 years ago. Something called the Lattice Project. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it was believed to be a mind control program run by a group of private contractors, psychological warfare, social engineering, the works. And now he was here, in our city, leading sessions for the Fold. Emily paled when she saw the article. That's him. That's Zara's handler. Zara? I asked. She reports to him. Or did. I think he runs the whole thing. But no one ever talks to him directly. He just watches. We were unraveling something we didn't fully understand. And worse, we were on their radar now. The next afternoon, I noticed something strange. The mailman skipped our building. I stood by the window for 20 minutes, and he didn't stop once. Then I saw a black van parked across the street, windows tinted, engine off. A man sat in the driver's seat, not moving, just waiting. Emily confirmed my fear. That's one of theirs. We didn't go outside for the rest of the day, but we weren't about to give up either. That night, we packed up the journal, the USB, and the photographs into an old duffel bag. I suggested we go see someone I knew, Mr. Carver. He was a former investigative journalist who retired after receiving too many threats for exposing a cult in Eastern Europe. If anyone knew how to handle something like this, it was him. Carver's cabin was 2 hours away in the woods. We left just after midnight, traveling back roads and keeping our lights low. Emily stayed quiet most of the ride, staring at the tree lines as if expecting something to lunge out of the dark. I didn't blame her. When we arrived, Carver didn't answer his door. I knocked twice, waited, then knocked again. Still nothing, but the door was unlocked. The cabin was dark, except for a single desk lamp flickering near the fireplace. I called out his name, but only silence answered. Emily stayed close, holding the bag like a lifeline. Then I saw him, slumped in the chair, Carver's head tilted unnaturally to the side. His throat was cut cleanly, no blood spatter, just a precise, almost surgical incision. On the table beside him, scrawled in a thick red marker, were 4 words. Curiosity breeds consequence. Emily gasped and stumbled backward. The duffel slipped from her hand and burst open. Papers, photos, and the USB spilled across the wooden floor. We froze. There was no time to grieve. Carver was our last hope for exposure. Now he was a message, a warning, and they had clearly followed us. Emily grabbed the USB and stuffed everything back inside the bag. I scanned the room, expecting someone to come out of the shadows at any second. But we were alone, or they wanted us to believe that. We ran. Back in the car, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. We knew what this meant. We weren't dealing with a cult anymore. This was an organization. Trained, funded, silent, deadly. Back at my apartment, Emily finally broke down. She sat on the kitchen floor, crying into her hands. I thought they were helping me, she choked out. I thought I was finally part of something that understood me. You were vulnerable, I said. They knew that. That's what they look for. But I helped them, she whispered. I let them watch people. I delivered the letters. I made them trust me. And now Carver's dead. That's my fault. No, I said, kneeling beside her. It's theirs. They built this lie. You're trying to fix it now. That matters. She looked up at me, eyes raw. What if it's too late? I wanted to tell her it wasn't. That we'd bring them down. That justice would come. But I couldn't lie. The next morning, I noticed something on my desk. A small red envelope. I hadn't put it there. Emily hadn't either. Inside was a note written in delicate handwriting. One last chance. Burn the files. Forget her. Or join her. No signature. No name. Just a small hand-drawn spiral inside a square, Marcus's symbol. They had been inside. Again. Emily saw the note and lost what little calm she had left. They're escalating. This is what they do. They break you down. They give you a choice that isn't really a choice. But it was a choice. And we were done being afraid. That night, we made a copy of everything. Multiple USBs, photos, typed documents, and split them between several dead-drop locations. Inside books at thrift stores, buried in park flower beds, tucked into cafe bathroom ceilings. We created QR codes that led to encrypted folders and printed them onto fake flyers. We left them around college campuses, bookstores, community boards. Even if something happened to us, the truth would find its way out. Our final plan was simple: confront Marcus Lane. If we could record a confession, or even get a visual of him and tie him to the fold, we'd have something undeniable. We just needed to find him again. Emily had one last thread. "There's a house," she said, "out past Hollow Pines. It's where they take new initiates. I went once. I think that's where Marcus stays when he's in the area." We waited until just after sunset. The house was buried deep in the woods, a forgotten Victorian relic with boarded windows and a crumbling porch. Emily's hands trembled as we approached. I carried a hidden recorder in my jacket. Emily had pepper spray and a small stun device just in case. We circled to the back and slipped inside through a broken panel near the basement. The air was thick with mildew and something faintly metallic, blood. Maybe. Upstairs, voices. We crept toward the light spilling from an open door. There he was, Marcus Lane, sitting at the head of a table surrounded by 6 others in white masks, their hands flat on the table, completely still. "Tonight," Marcus said, his voice calm, measured. "We sever ties. Emily made her choice. Now we must ensure she doesn't make another." I pulled out my phone, started the recording. Emily stepped forward, her voice shaking. "I didn't make a choice. You manipulated me. You used my trauma." Marcus turned slowly, eyes locking on hers. His face lit up with something that almost resembled amusement. "You returned," he said softly. "How brave. Or foolish." He stood. The others rose with him, silent. "We don't punish disobedience," Marcus continued. "We correct it. And you brought a guest. How thoughtful." I took a step forward. "You're done. We've spread the truth. Copies everywhere. You can't erase it now." Marcus smiled. "You think this is about erasing?" he asked. "This isn't about secrecy. It's about control. You've misjudged the purpose entirely." He lifted a small device from his pocket, clicked it. The house went dark. Screams followed, then static, then silence. When the lights flickered back, the room was empty. Marcus, the masked people, gone. Only Emily and I remained, standing in a room that now looked abandoned. Cobwebs, dust, decay, as if no one had been there in years. But the recording was still running, and the symbols on the walls, spirals inside squares, were still fresh with paint. We didn't speak. We just ran. And we didn't stop until morning. This is just the beginning. If you think this part was intense, wait till you see what comes next. Stay with us. Part 2 is coming soon. Make sure to subscribe the channel so you don't miss it.